Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me uh, for this three-game slate Wednesday evening are Nick Martin and Tim Kalinowski. I will also talk about a future that starting to percolate, I think, amongst hockey bettors and the hockey betting community right now. So we'll give our thoughts on that at the end. But we'll start with a big mismatch here. The Sharks are playing their first game in 2 weeks, by the way. I don't know how many people picked up on that, but the Sharks had their break start. Like they were one of the teams that had to buy post All-Star. So they played the Wednesday night before the break, and we haven't seen them since. And they get to be welcomed back in Winnipeg against the Jets. Sharks are plus 320. The Jets are minus 420 and a total of 5.5. I actually think that if you're going to bet this, you would play the Sharks. It's like a low. It's a. I'm not saying you should run to the window and bet it right now, but we've seen this Jets team kind of wilt a bit. A decent effort against the Penguins over the weekend, but they caught them on a back-to-back and still weren't able to really stamp their authority on a game. And like it's not all that promising from Winnipeg, where they'd be the type of team like you would think could just run away from the Sharks. And on the other hand, it's San Jose, and you're thinking, okay, these guys just had 2 weeks off. They all went away from their being the worst team in the NHL, and now they got to go back to work and probably not thrilled to be there. Or you could look at it as here come the guys who want to get traded, Duclair and Hoffman and Kakinen, whoever else on this team wants to get traded. So maybe you get an effort like that. There's a lot of different weird angles here, but the one
Keep
that I'm
listing
just
sharks. Keep listing sharks. I
yeah
dare you. Let's see. Let's
yeah
see how far you
how
can
many of
go.
them would make it? How many San Jose Barabanov? I think Barabanov has like a decent case to be a good bottom six player in a playoff team. But
Blackwood.
Blackwood, we can keep going. Um, doesn't seem like the most interesting game though. If it was a 10 game slate, we'd probably just be like, ugh, about this one. If it was a 1 game slate, we'd be like, gotta bet the Sharks here. But it's a three
Oh yeah.
game slate, so we're kind of in the middle here. And Nick, do you have anything more interesting than me waffling on betting the Sharks at better the 3-1?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the price looked pretty fair too. I wouldn't play the Jets here. Um, just with how stale their offenses look. They haven't scored a power play goal since they played your Islanders. That's insane. And I think the one thing I kind of want to key in on, and they did get a great spot. It's not like they just dominated, but I think Nick Ehlers to go over 3.5, if you can get better than even money, over 3.5 shots on goal. I would play that. He got moved back to the top line. I think people have probably heard us complaining, and it's one of those things. Like I think it's interesting because talking about Ehlers going off the top line, I feel like it's one of those things that everyone hates listening to the analytics community just talk about how good Ehlers is and how much they dominate when he's on the ice. But I think this year's especially interesting because they won every game when he was on the top line. And then they took him off and they started losing every game. And I think there's way more causation than that. But he gets to go back up to the top line on Saturday and they win. And he has an assist on the opening goal and had 9 shot attempts, 6 shots on goal. I feel like he's just going to keep riding it in a great spot here. I wish he was still on the top power play unit. I think he deserves to be there. You look at the way he creates offense. Um, and I saw someone talking about how the way that he dried up in the playoffs, and I was like, who are the Jets to complain about any of their players drying up last year? They got smoked. Did the whole team not do exactly that? It felt like an unreasonable complaint to me, like 40 or whatever, 50 games into this year to just say like to make that point. I feel like he's proven this year that he deserves to be there, and that's all he can do. So, anyways, I'm high on his game. I think he's going to kind of continue to look a little rejuvenated if they keep him on the top line. Maybe he was kind of pouting a bit on the second line, but I don't love the setup with Monahan there either. So if they keep him up with Scheifele, those two, whether it's been with Velarde or Connor this year, have really tilted play in the right direction. And I think they'll do that tomorrow. So I feel like it's kind of a decent time to buy on him in the shop market, even though he did only have 15 minutes too on Saturday. So um, it's not like his time on ice was way up there, but I feel like I can live with that, and get some good matchups versus Sharks as well.
Yeah, Leboff, I have no right to scoff at you over your San Jose Sharks love, because we do love big dogs here. But the problem is the 2-week layoff, essentially, or whatever it's been, how many days. It's just too much for me. I don't know how you can go that long without playing. And, they don't really have the luxury of easing into games or finding their legs, because it can be in the back of their net pretty quickly and they could go back to chasing like they seem to do a lot of the time. So, that's kind of my problem. Is I would love to take a flyer on the 3-1, but it's yeah, we see teams take like 4 days off and look rusty, let alone this.
Yeah,
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 and
it's ugly.
and I was just gonna say, like, the flip side of that too, though. Like, do you want to bet the Jets to win by 2 at -150?
No,
That
No.
it just,
no.
yeah, for me,
I mean,
it's a
it's a low total. It's a weird game, man. It's just there's a lot of weird stuff with this one. Um, the overtime line is plus 450. I don't even think that's terrible. Like it's but yeah, I don't think we need to talk too much more about it. But I it's very rare you see overtime lines get that high.
Yeah, and
we
the
need about
Jets
one
are
play from it. That's plenty.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
the Jets also in no position to like take a game lightly. So that's kind of a problem too.
That's a good point. All right, game of the night, Panthers and Penguins. Florida -126. The Penguins are plus 105. This total sitting at 6.5. The under is on the juice. Excuse me, the juice is on the under. Uh, I thought I would be betting the Penguins here. I don't think that the line is quite good enough. They they're still not that good. I don't think defensively. I think that they do a pretty good job of generating good looks and not a good job of converting them. So they haven't really been able to paper over some of their defensive flaws. But what's helped is just the goaltending's been outstanding for Pittsburgh, whether it's been Jari or Nedeljkovic. But this is a Panthers team that I think just matches up pretty well with them because they're deep, they're physical, they are clinical. If you're making mistakes, the Panthers, first of all, can force you into mistakes, and if you are making mistakes, they'll punish you. Um, it's a massive game for Pittsburgh too. We're recording this on Tuesday, so the Devils and Islanders will have played by perhaps the time you've listened, probably by the time you listen to this. So Pittsburgh could be, in serious trouble. Like this could end up being a must-win game for the Penguins. In the same vein that like going down 2-0 or through or even 2-1 in like a best of 7 series is like it's not a technical must-win game, but it's pretty close. They've got games in hand on Philadelphia, but the Flyers won 4 in a row, are now 11 points clear of Pittsburgh. If the Devils and Islanders find a way to win, they'd be 5 points clear. The Maple Leafs could be 9 points clear by the time you listen to this. The Lightning could be 10 clear. So it's just, even though they have the games in hand, it could just be a serious situation for the Penguins. And I'm sure that they all know that Jake Gensel is on the trading block, or maybe he is, maybe he isn't. There's a lot of pressure, I think, building up on the Penguins. They're a team that should be able to handle it. But the number, I don't think the number is good enough to back the Pens here. Tim, you're leaning the other way. You're looking at Florida coming in here and playing to their number. So I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, I lean Florida just because I have so many less question marks than I do about Pittsburgh. All your reasons to not play Pittsburgh at the number are reasons that I like Florida. I think Florida is the most complete team in the league. I've said it time and time again. This is I'm doing the thing where it's like excited to bet a good team. Like I love how you said that last episode, because I feel that way a lot. It's like, oh, you don't get many opportunities to back Florida with how good they are. So a price like this, interesting. It's a front end of a back to back for both of these teams. So night one, I think we're gonna get both of their starters here. They're both their number one guys, but I maybe it's just because you like dogs. I was hoping to be talked into the Panthers here because I'm excited to bet them.
I thought this one looked pretty fair. I lean towards the Panthers. We've talked about how the Pens always get a lot of credit, but to me, this just, I mean, you look at these teams played like 3 weeks ago in Pittsburgh. And I feel like the betting prices were the exact same. And like everything about that matchup just makes me feel like they should be the exact same. Like the Panthers won that game in a shootout, and they were probably a marginally better team in it. So I lean with the Panthers. I agree. I think they will be a really popular play, and we'll probably see the number move. Just because, yeah, I do agree with Tim. Like they're one of the more well-rounded teams in the entire league. So I feel like there's maybe going to be spots to buy on Pittsburgh, but I don't know if this is one of them. I think they're getting a lot of credit for their underlying process, considering how good the Panthers really have been, kind of all over the ice. Um, and yeah, like Mike said, it's going to be interesting to see how the upcoming stretch of games go for the Pens. I think they actually have a pretty clear case for, like, to this point, having played as the best team that's not in the wild card picture. They've got a plus 13 goal differential. I think there's some pretty legitimate positives. They ran really bad in close games. So, like, I think they can be a team that you're betting on to turn around. But that's kind of being accounted for here if you look at them being priced this way with one of the best teams in the league. So, yeah, I didn't really see it with Pittsburgh here, but yeah, it feels. I honestly wouldn't even hate if you wanted to do the overtime again
Mhm.
on a similar kind of one. I think that could be a reasonable bet, but didn't really have much on this one.
Yeah, it's funny. The Penguins have won three, I believe, of their last 10. But for some reason, yeah, they're 3-4-3 in their last 10 with the -2 goal differential. So that just tells you, like, they're basically in every game. Uh, they're not getting the rub of the luck, and most of the time that's finishing and not goaltending. And you'd think it would be the other way around. Um,
Is
and
that NHL goal differential, Mike? Or like true?
it would be -1,
Okay. Oh
because
yeah, because
there's
that was
one
an only shootout.
shootout loss in there. So it's not like they have, to borrow a quote from Sheldon Keefe. I think that uh the Penguins always play well enough to win, but also do enough to lose. Like every game, I feel like that's just them to a T. And I still don't really trust that their goaltending should stay at this level. So if it does come down to earth a little bit, they're scary. So fun one, one that has a ton of implications for basically every race in the East, whether it's the Atlantic Division, the number one seed with the Panthers and the Penguins in the playoff race. There's a lot to go into there. And like Tim said, both these teams on the front end of a back to back. So keep that in mind. The Penguins will be traveling to Chicago the next night. We'll talk about that one on Thursday. Let's round out the 3-game slate with Wild and Coyotes. The Wild are -118 on the road. Coyotes -102. Another 5.5 at the time of recording. So 2 out of the 3 with 5.5 is pretty rare. I don't know if they'll stick around though. I like the Wild here, which is sad, but I'm just waving it. I'm waving the white flag with Arizona. That Flyers game, man. Like, had they just been able to keep their kind of just keep their head. Like, it wasn't like stupid stuff, but just a little bit of undisciplined play, and they just couldn't overcome it. And uh, I thought, like, half the team was going really well, half the team wasn't. It just looks disjointed, and yeah,
That's like the learn how to win part of it, leave
it
off,
does
right?
feel like that a little bit, right? Like it's like it was a delay of game puck over the glass penalty in the third period that I think like kind of doomed them. And that's to me not like a boneheaded cross check a guy in the face kind of like lose your cool penalty, but just you lose
The
yourself.
puck rolled.
Yeah, I know, but it's like that kind of penalty. Like I feel like because of the way that game was going, where the Coyotes had taken 6 or 7 penalties already in the game, you're just like killer.
Brain fart penalty.
Yeah, or and just like a lack, like a
Lack
1%
of
lack of execution.
crispness, you know?
Crispness is a good word to use there. Not a great schedule spot. They just played in Nashville, then they travel to Philadelphia. Now they travel all the way back across the country to play at home. The Wild looked really good in Vegas the other night, and I think have played all right lately. So yeah, I don't mind Mini here, Tim.
Yeah, Nick, does this mean I guess my biggest cause for concern about being on the Wild is goaltending. We gonna get Gustafson or are we gonna get Fleury? What's your vibe?
I would play Gustafson.
Okay.
You guys
I
know I would, but
I
I'm
agree. I
not
mean,
saying I have much faith in that happening, but I feel like he had a pretty good game
Projected is
Vegas.
Fleury, unfortunately, when I just looked.
Yeah, but I mean, they don't know what they're doing, right? Like seriously, I feel like a lot of those things, like when you really pay attention, it's a projection based off no source, if you know what I mean. It
Yeah,
might
yeah.
be something to do with the way they flip-flopped, but unless it's like a back-to-back, I feel like a lot of those, and maybe I'm going to be completely wrong because that's with like some sort of a source, but a lot of times those things just like say, and if you actually look sometimes at like the score for one and ESPN for another, whatever, they'll literally have two different ones because they're just basing it off whatever.
Well, it's a good
Um,
lesson.
yeah. But the one thing I would say with Arizona, it goes into completely what Mike was saying, is the process hasn't been great. I thought the Nashville game was better, but last night wasn't great. And the one thing that's kind of killing them is now their goaltenders aren't going. Like I thought that Lawton wraparound, I don't know how Vejmelka lost the net, but that just cost them a point probably. Probably shouldn't happen. I don't think he needed to chase him 3 feet away. I was just disgusted watching it. And then the Nashville game too, the one that Ingram got the majority of his glove on goes in to tie the game, was the same kind of thing. Just like felt like they played as good as they could and didn't get the goaltending. And then they're always playing such marginal hockey. I agree. I think it's the Wilder pass here. I also actually like the over at 5.5. Just same thing with Mini. The main kind of point I've made with them ahead of the last few games is I don't think their offense is going to be this bad. And I don't think that case is that hard to make if you look at like the talent on the roster and where they've been kind of trending the last few years. I don't think their offense is as gutted as it looks, especially if Rossi's actually going to play pretty good. I don't think they're like that far off from some of those years where they're really popping offensively. So 5.5 looks a little low to me. Um, just with the goaltending and the Yotes, they're just not playing good defensively. And yeah. And then the one thing too, I think the Wild, they're kind of interesting. Like they're plus 450 to make the playoffs. I don't hate that. I'm not gonna say it's like a must bet, but I think that would actually be my favorite like play on any of the teams out of that clump in the West to make the playoffs.
They're probably my
Because
favorite team of the clumps. I think I have the
yeah,
most confidence in them. If in that
yeah, that's the
tier.
thing. And they get so Arizona here, they get Buffalo, Vancouver's tough, but still like they have a decent stretch of winnable games. If they can win the winnable ones, I feel like they're just kind of they look like the most complete team. And I do think you kind of have to respect their prior history too for like how many points they've racked up the last few years. I don't know if I think they're like that far behind where they were. So we'll see. Maybe I'm biased. I also really want them to sneak in because I think it'd be great for Brock Faber's Calder case if they do squeeze out that last playoff spot. But I think they're the best team out of that pack, right? Like if they
I
were
tend to agree.
get to play a playoff, if we were doing the NHL play-in series, I think they'd be a very live shot. But I think this is also a really good case about why I hate that play-in idea. Hey, because for like these West teams, like you're playing 82 games, whoever comes up with it, I think deserves it. It would kind of be silly to just be like, all right, we'll play a best 2 out of 3, and whoever wins it is
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, I don't let's keep it to 16, please.
And I'll add that if you heard Torts after the game talk about our Yotes, I mean, you would swear that they were the Oilers. He said that's a really good hockey team. They're dangerous. They defend well. I mean, what could go? Why are they so bad, right, Torts? Why they should be in the wild card?
He's got respect for our guy Tarigny,
Yeah,
and he's
yeah,
not
he's
going
doing
to
his best.
slight his team.
He's doing his best to keep him in the race. Well, thank you, Torts. All right, so it sounds like the Wild and the over there. Let's move on to a quick talk on one particular future. If you guys have others you want to discuss, that's fine. But there is one that has started to percolate a bit here, and that's Jacob Markstrom in the Vezina conversation. Connor Hellebuck is still odds on. He's minus 130 to win it. You can bet Markstrom versus the field at some books at like basically a pick 'em. But excuse me, did I say Hellebuck or Markstrom? You can bet Hellebuck against the field at basically a pick 'em. The contenders list looks like it's Hellebuck head and shoulders above the field right now. Then it's Demko, Aiden Hilsurge, Jeremy Swayman is still in the conversation. But then after that, it's open and goalies can just get hot. And I think that Markstrom's already done that. Like he's just white hot right now, and he's been really good all season. He's starting to get a lot of airtime on a bunch of panels because his name's in the trade market. I don't think that the Flames are going to trade him. I think that this him winning the Vezina is correlated to the Flames making the playoffs as well. Um, so I think, you can get him at 35-1. I think that's a fine bet, actually. Totally fine. Like, I think if the season ended today, he wouldn't win it, but he'd be probably on the fringe of a lot of ballots or on like as like the number 3 guy. And that's good enough for me when there's still 30 games left in a season, Nick.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not awful if he gets traded either. I love your take on them, like saying if the Flames get in and like grab that final soft West wild card spot, that's going to make his case. And I think you'd have such a good chance of that happen. But he got traded to like New Jersey, like they were supposedly was very close to happening. I don't think you hate that either. He gets on a better team that's the Devils have been defending a fair bit better recently. So that could work out good too, because he's really been getting quite tough. Like he's been getting a lot of tough shots lately. It feels like the Flames, the bottom's kind of fallen out defensively, and he really has been just huge. And a lot of people have taken notice over this Eastern road swing about how good he's playing. So yeah, I like that too. And yeah, I think that was the one. The other one I'd kind of throw out there too is I think the Panthers to win the Presidents at plus 750. I know I had given out the Stars over the break, but that number's really gone down quick. So if you're wondering why I'm now pitching another one, this is why. I just look at it and I feel like they project like I think they're maybe the best team, the most well-rounded team, pretty solid backup goalie, should be able to handle injuries more effectively than a lot of other rosters, solid schedule. So I think plus 750 is just a hair too long. That's kind of another future I like that's still available.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to convince me on Florida. I already have Stanley Cup and East, all that sort of stuff with them. Leave off why I like the Markstrom thing, and it's a larger conversation, is because it feels contrarian in the fact that like the Flames are selling off, and I think a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, they're done. Like this is it. But they've been red hot since a couple of the deals that they've made, and I think that's indicative of kind of betting as a whole, and that as soon as we kind of say a team's done and they've quit, they're valuable and they rattle off wins. I think I still go back to what I said earlier, and that I feel like it's a relief to see some of these pieces go, and that like if we continue to talk about them over and over again, then it's almost like a sigh of relief in the dressing room. Thing with Markstrom though, as well, yeah. So you're basically, are they going to get in? I
Yeah.
mean, if they sell off Hannafin, I know it goes contrary to what I just said, but if they sell off Hannafin and Tanev, then it's that might be too many pieces
Yeah.
gone.
But I think those. Oh, sorry, Mike.
No, go for it.
I was just gonna say, I think those things still work in their favor though, because like the actual chances, kind of whenever
Yeah,
they do
yeah.
get that spot are like not that bad. And then that like Hellebuck's got a really good case. I'm not even really like trying to like say we like this because he's favored too much, which is typically kind of what you'd be saying for like a long shot like this. But I think that would all work in his favor, that people would be like, wow, you really dragged this team to the
Right.
playoffs. And even if that final spot in the West looks like it's going to be completely different than any other playoff spot, really, in terms of how hard it would be to grab, I don't really think anyone will like think about it that way. And when you're talking 35-1, that's a pretty decent case.
And the last point I'll make that I think works in Markstrom's favor here is you think about the 4 guys. If you wanted to say there's a top 5 right now, it's Hellebuck, Demko, Hill, and Swayman with him. And there's a good chance like the Jets are just in that number 3 spot in the playoffs with like 10 games to go. There's a good chance that Vancouver maybe just runs away with the Pacific with 10 games to go. And the Knights will probably want to handle Aiden Hill's workload. He's only played 20 games so far. He's been fantastic, that they'll probably want to sit him, and make sure he's fresh for the playoffs and not risk him in injury in a meaningless game. Whereas Markstrom, like if the Flames are involved or even if they're out of it, like he's going to be their guy. So I think he's got a
Same,
pretty good
I was
case
gonna
that
say
like,
same point if he goes to Devils too, right?
right.
Like if
Yeah,
they
exactly.
trade to get him, he's
Yep.
he's going to be playing like nightly to try to sneak him in the playoffs. So
Yep. Yeah, you look at games played, right? Like Hellebuck and Demko are 37 and 38. Markstrom's at 33. I would not be surprised if Markstrom ends up tying or starting one or two more than them. So a long way to go in that one, I would say. So that's if you're there's really one or two, I guess, awards where it feels like a gate crasher could come in. And this is one of them, and it's a pretty good price. So Jacob Markstrom, if you definitely want to consider. With that, we can get out of here. We will leave you and wish you best of luck on Wednesday night. We'll be back on Thursday. A lot more games to talk about. So for Tim and Nick, good luck with all your bets. I'm Mike. Thank you to our producer Noah, and please rate, review, and subscribe.